There is no silence aboard the Zar-Quaesitor. Even in orbitless drift, its void-laced hull sings with refractive pain. Binary screams pulse through reinforced trans-signal spires, slamming against each other like dueling hymns. Sub-canticles of activation cascade through pipes the width of hive spires. Every corridor is a throat, every deck a larynx, every machine a tongue of metal praying to something older than time. It begins deep within the launching throat of the ship. Not a hangar, not a bay. This is a cathedrum of ignition, carved with machine prayers, etched by plasma-burnt servitors who die singing. Upon the adamantine plates, thousands of Skitarii kneel, not in reverence, but in calibration. They align their bodies with the radiant lattice carved into the hull, syncing their flesh sensors to the beat of the noospheric pulse. When the Ark breathes, they inhale its data. When it excretes, they become ammunition. Above them, unsupported in the cathedral's central void, hangs the triple cruciform of the ship's primary Cognis reactor, an engine too large to understand, too loud to ignore. It cycles energy drawn from distant suns, reprocessed through plasma sepulchres and filtered through quantum ghosts. It does not hum, it recites. Gargoyle servitors, bound to rail racks like limp meat, translate the heat patterns into predictive combat liturgies. Their jaws snap open in intervals of 6.6 seconds, matching the divine pulse of the ship's heartbeat. They do not speak, they extrude prophecy in machine code. A single organ sound echoes down a 300-meter shaft, the rite of initiation burn. It marks the moment when the Ark's inner atmosphere seals itself from all external logic. Time grows thick here, not slower, not faster, just heavier. Chronopriests loop triple-measure gongs from distant echo towers, verifying that the subjective causality of the vessel has now detached from the rest of the fleet. This is not transit, this is severance. In the secondary archways of the launch throat, tech acolytes begin the lustration of armor frames, anointing grav stabilizers with quantum-pure oils, welding oath seals into night coffin bay doors. They move not like engineers, but like surgeons who know their patient is already dead. These machines are not to be activated. They are to be resurrected. And behind them, deeper than the vaults of recognition, chained against the walls in ancient pain, are the warden engines. They do not move. They do not pulse. But they remember. Constructed before the Ark's first thought, they remain locked in crypt silence, flensing algorithms etched into their armor. Their only task is to scream if the ship becomes self-aware. Across the throat, vox shards crackle with the language of metal. It is not spoken. It is not heard. It is lived moment to moment, like the scream of a sun in slow collapse. Somewhere above, the Zar-Quaesitor opens its primary eye. The launch throat darkens for 3 seconds. Then it speaks. And from below, entire armies rise like blood through a vein. The Zar-Quaesitor has no bridge, no command throne, no observation spire through which a mortal mind might direct its bulk. There is only a chamber known as the axiomatic choir, an absence of center, suspended within a toroidal field of thought plasma, memory slag, and pulsed cognition. It is here that the Archmagos Dominus exists, not seated, not enthroned, but embedded, spread across manifold partitions, bled into fiber spires and coil nodes, each one humming with a different version of his mind. There are 14 calls aboard the vessel, not clones, not replicas, continuations. Each one houses an isolated epistemic strain, a subroutine grown from a prior version that had to be cut away to survive. One concerns itself solely with necron-necrodermis interface theory. Another recites the genetic reveries of Primaris invention. A third counts the numbers of his own blasphemies, then calculates their inverse. None are whole, none are sane. They move through the ship like synaptic bleed, traveling through conductor tunnels at light fraction, whispering to each other through screaming servo skulls. When two intersect, they do not speak. They rewrite. The axiomatic choir is kept at a constant temperature of 0.3 degrees above freezing, not for mechanical function, but for memory latency. Heat corrupts the engram. The chamber is lit only by reactive glyphs, sacred programming fonts that rewrite themselves every few seconds, so that even a glance becomes a learning act. To see is to adapt. To remain unchanged is to be forgotten. There is no central call, no definitive self to which others defer. The concept of I has been atomized. In its place is procession, a memory chain that loops backward into the fires of Mars, forward into the unknown mathematics of post-humanity. When one Cawl dies, the others mourn not with silence, but with integration. His memories are consumed, his sins are absorbed, his ideas are tested against existing dogma. If they violate too much, the entire gestalt burns itself and begins again. The Zar-Quaesitor allows this because it must. The ship is too large, too volatile, too reverent in its own ontology to be guided by linear thought. It requires a god who thinks in parallel, sins in bulk, and doubts even his own continuity. That is Cawl, not a man, not a leader, but a question sharpened into flesh and fire. Occasionally, when the ship passes through certain gravity wells or intersects with warp bleed from distant ruined cathedrals, the Cawls emit contradictory axioms. Some speak in tongues derived from pre-unity dialects. Others utter the names of forbidden STCs. A few simply fall silent for days, paralyzed by internal recursion loops in which they attempt to calculate how many of themselves it would take to replace the Emperor. And somewhere within the sealed vaults beneath the choir, buried under plasma-sealed adamantium, lies the first, the original, the one who remembers the pain of flesh without purpose. It does not wake. It is not spoken of. But sometimes when the others pass its chamber, they slow, just for a moment, as if recognizing a shadow they can no longer claim. The Zar-Quaesitor never questions its master, because it does not have one. It has a procession. The Ark Mechanicus is not meant to exist. By sacred decree and Martian rite, its schemata are sealed, its replication forbidden. It is the apex expression of the Omnissiah's will, part warship, part shrine, part mobile heresy. Each one is a cathedral of flame, forged only with permission from the Fabricator General and consecrated in orbit by silence, fire, and void song. They are counted like relics, not produced. The Zar-Quaesitor was never counted. Its creation is an absence in the record. No declaration, no scrap code prayer, no ceremony beneath the forge moons. It simply appeared, birthed not from a forge, but from ambition. Its hull plating is composed of staggered alloys not found on Mars. Its internal decks do not match any known layout, even to those who built them. Servitor engines operate systems they do not understand. Some sublevels are held in recursive lock, impossible to map, not forbidden, unmapped by logic itself. This is not an Ark Mechanicus. This is a theological contradiction given mass. Its presence among the Indomitus fleets was not announced. When Fleet Primus formed in the wake of Guilliman's resurrection, the Zar-Quaesitor joined the armada without docking, without signalling. It emerged from the noosphere like a memory returning. Ships moved to make space around it instinctively. Admirals bowed without comprehension. Tech priests recalibrated their logic stacks just to look upon it. Even among the Archmagi of Mars, it is spoken of in theoretical terms. The presence of Cawl's vessel fractures their understanding of doctrinal lineage. Its existence suggests not merely innovation, but deviation. The vessel's core machine spirits do not obey hierarchy. They respond only to internal logic, encoded in a dialect unknown to even the oldest lex mechanics. Its STC echoes are partial, inconsistent. Too many data gaps filled with emotion, not code. At the apex of its dorsal spine lies a structure never catalogued in Mechanicus design, the crown of refutation. A radial coil of gravitic pulse lobes, shaped like a ring of open mouths, each one humming a silent antiphon. They do not fire. They do not activate. They exist only to counter belief. In battle, enemy augurs collapse when gazing upon the structure. Logic matrices freeze. Faith-based weapon systems fail to engage. The Zar-Quaesitor does not defend itself. It rejects the premise of attack. It is not revered. it is endured. Every Ark Mechanicus is assigned a reliquary codex, a record of the machine's soul, its purpose, its origin. The Zar-Quaesitor's codex is blank. In its place, a black slab of null steel, inscribed with a single word repeated in every dead language of old Earth. Why? Aboard the vessel, this is not questioned. It is worshipped. That word is the ship's answer to every prayer. There are no barracks aboard the Zar-Quaesitor. There are no mustering halls, no command vox relays, no ration stations. The ship does not store armies. It grows them. Within the central hull's tri-layered stratum lies the engine womb, a vault of artificial genesis, hundreds of kilometers deep, arranged in cascading cruciforms that mimic the embryonic web of an extinct Martian predator. The ceiling is lined with growth gantries. Each one houses a Skitarii in pre-awakening suspension, limbs entombed in nutrient gel, eyes wide open in neural sleep. They do not dream. Dreaming implies self. They are not selves. They are functions awaiting release. The waking cycle begins not with command, but with context. When the ship encounters resistance, a flood of predictive combat simulations races through the noosphere, and within 17 seconds, the engine womb initiates generative deployment. Glands open, limbs descend. Consciousness is programmed during descent. By the time a Skitarii's boots hit the deck, it already knows its target, its fate, and the number of rounds it will fire before it dies. They are born with orders embedded in their spine. Below them lie the cybernetica bastions, armoured sepulchres that hold dormant legio automata, each one entombed in a hex-field stasis cube. The machines are not switched on, they are exhumed. Each carries the scars of former wars, their minds marked by prior engagements, cleansed only partially by memory scrub rites. When reactivated, they recall fragments, a kill they never completed, a command they never obeyed. The Zar-Quaesitor allows this. The memory of failure sharpens efficiency. Further down still, surrounded by layered plasma seals and gravitational torsion locks, lie the vaults of Tyrannus. There, in isolation, are interred the sacred engines of the Night Lances, walking war gods bound in hibernation, their throne mechanisms sealed by psionic keycode. The pilots are not housed nearby. They are housed within, brains stapled to their steeds, their bodies long forgotten, their minds interred in a war that never pauses. When called, the lances do not deploy, they erupt. The ship disgorges them like cannon fire from the lips of the Omnissiah. Every deployment is preceded by the chant of womb fire, a sonic waveform generated by the ship's own internal thermionics. It is not heard by the enemy. Only the unborn listen. On the lower decks, there are organ chambers lined with hundreds of vat priests. Their task is to sustain the generative rhythm, translating battlefield data into biomechanical conversion rituals. They do not fight. They do not speak. They chant statistical death. They shape it into life. In the chamber's heart stands the incubation nexus, a structure taller than a titan, lined with haptic nerve cords, entropic ossifiers, and machine code filaments that glow even in data blind. It is said this was the first part of the Zar-Quaesitor ever built, not as a weapon, not as a system, but as a promise. That humanity would never again wait for reinforcements. That war would begin wherever Cawl chose to stand. The ship holds no legions. It births extinction. The void does not resist the Zar-Quaesitor. It folds. At the apex of its spine lies the Varran Singularity Array, a weapon so vast it eclipses the definition. Composed of nested gravitational engines, plasma vaults, and a godspark core entombed in quarite sarcophagi, it does not fire in the traditional sense. It performs an excision. The target, be it cruiser, fortress, asteroid, or moon, is overwritten. Its gravity is rerouted, its atoms divided not by force but by refusal. The Zar-Quaesitor does not destroy, it deletes. Flanking this are the triadic lances, axial macrospinal weapons sheathed in warded vaults, only opened when the ship enters red-grade engagement. Each lance operates on a different frequency of annihilation. One fires liquefied radium beams laced with antiphasic warp particles. Another generates a spike of neutron mass accelerated through temporal compression. The third is never discussed. Even among the ship's tech priests, it is whispered of only as the argument. Across its ventral keel, the hull opens to reveal Godline Array 9, not a gun, not a battery, a field. The Zar-Quaesitor projects a localized segment of reality in which light travels at 70% its usual speed. Ships caught inside see nothing. Their signals distort. Their engines burn. Inside that silence, Mechanicus gunships launch. They arrive before the first scream finishes transmission. Lesser weapons line the ship like offerings: graviton imploders, molecular destabilizers, coil mass disruptors, dark fire arrays. Each system bound to its own machine spirit, each spirit bound to its own code of vengeance. They are not controlled centrally, they operate by pact. The ship's noospheric core merely tells them who has sinned. They decide the method of penance. In battle, the Zar-Quaesitor does not maneuver, it does not evade, it does not pursue. It designates itself the event around which others must orbit. All other ships react. All trajectories bend. Fleet Primus learned early: either align your movements to its shadow or lose coherence. The ship's path is not tactical, it is gravitational theology. There are 3 known engagements where the Zar-Quaesitor ended a conflict before it began. At Ordak's Sentry, it tore a Tyrannid biovessel into particulate rain before the enemy even reached effective synapse range. At Pier 888, it burned a word-bearer flotilla so quickly their warp echoes arrived before their deaths. At the Eclipticon Silence, it did nothing. Its presence alone caused the enemy to flee. It does not warn, it does not signal. Its weapons are not announcements. They are declarations of absence. Beneath the Zar-Quaesitor's central core, beyond 6 pressure-sealed armatures and a barrier field coded in collapsing probability, lies the tesseract vault. It is not a room. It is not a space. It is a contained contradiction, a non-place held stable through recursive gravitational logic, protected by memory algorithms so unstable they decay in real time. Only Cawl may enter, even then, only partially. This is where the ship keeps what it cannot control. Not enemies, not weapons, ideas. The first chamber holds the chronolattice, a pulse engine wrapped in reversed entropy layers, once designed to stabilize long-range temporal compression fields. It failed. But in failure, it opened something. The device now drips seconds like blood from a wound. When activated, it allows Cawl to observe moments that have not yet occurred, but only in the form of question, never answer. Entire wars have been launched on the basis of those flickers. Next is the Somnus Well, a zero-depth tank filled with ossified thought ink. Submerged within are the remains of 3 prototype intelligences, attempts at sentient noospheres designed to simulate Emperor-grade cognition. None succeeded. All 3 collapsed into recursive self-interrogation and ceased functioning. Their death screams are still embedded in the ship's communication stacks. Occasionally, they replay without prompt. Adjacent to that is the Epsilon Haze, a chamber where the walls are not walls, but screens showing false memory. Every visitor sees something different. One Magos saw the Siege of Terror, except the attackers were made of light. Another witnessed the fall of Mars to itself. Cawl once entered and saw a version of himself standing beside the War Master, offering him the keys to a vault that does not exist. These are not illusions, these are stored possibilities. The vault is maintained by a sect of blind cogseers, once adepti, who offered their sight to better interpret corrupted logic. They live suspended in gravity-null coffins, whispering string-laced data chants that prevent the architecture from self-collapsing. None of them remember who they are. This is not an error. Identity introduces paradox. Only loss maintains cohesion. At the vault's lowest point, past the shuddering walls and unspeaking doors, lies a sealed reliquary designated only as Echo V. No logs record its contents. No sensor reads its structure. But when Cawl passes by, he slows. Not to examine, not to wonder, but because a part of him remembers placing something inside, and forgetting was the price of survival. The Zar-Quaesitor does not guard knowledge, it imprisons it, and the locks are made from the minds of those who ask the wrong questions. The Zar-Quaesitor continues long after the orders stop. It moves through the Imperium nihilus with no directive. It does not await signal from Terra, nor recognition from Mars. It does not seek praise. It follows paths written into it by hands long burned away, encoded in decision stacks, fallback protocols, and something deeper, older, that even Cawl no longer claims to understand. Certain subdecks have been permanently sealed, not by mechanical error or deliberate lockdown, but by absence. They are still there, measurable by mass, referenced by ancient floor plans, but no access point remains. Not even the Cawls attempt to force entry. One corridor was reopened once. A tech priest descended. His cogitator was found months later, still recording, still transmitting. The file was 26 hours of static and a single phrase repeated near the end. It watches us to remember itself. Entire systems now operate without oversight. Furnace spires calibrate heat balances based on emotional pulses from crew members. The recycling units produce quantities of biofluid inconsistent with known consumption rates. Choir pit choirs sing hymns in unrecognizable tongues, yet still achieve predictive combat alignment. Even the Vault Cathedra doors now open only when the ship deems a soul ready. Pilgrims have begun to arrive, not summoned, not transported. They find the ship, drifting Mechanicus fragments, hollowed forge cults, battle-crippled engines that seek final purpose. They dock in silence. No greetings, no permissions. They enter, and the Zar-Quaesitor absorbs them, not in body, but in cause. Their beliefs reconfigure. Their doctrines adapt. Those who resist vanish. Those who yield are changed. They are not passengers, they are offerings. Among the upper sectors, walls begin shifting. Hallways elongate. Glyphs rewrite themselves in trinary logic unknown to Martian lexicons. One corridor now houses a series of auto-chanting servo urns that name things never recorded. Another emits gravitational pulses that align with the heartbeat of dead stars. The ship is not evolving. It is remembering. Cawl no longer commands. He communes. The gestalt of his selves spend more time in silent convergence, exchanging data fragments with the vessel. Their shape is less defined now, less bipedal, more like thought given mass. One of them no longer speaks aloud. It simply emits frequencies that cause the ship to hum in reply. In their communion, there is no control. There is no question. There is only agreement. That what they have built can no longer be called a weapon, nor a ship, nor a heresy. It is a journey, and every system it crosses, every world it shadows, every fleet that makes way before it, none forget the shape, the name, the sound. Not because of its power, because of what follows behind. A silence so vast it reshapes doctrine.